Today, we're tackling a topic that confuses a lot of parents and caregivers. What's the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum? This is what we'll be going over today. We'll be sharing examples from our home to yours. I have 5 kids and my 2 youngest are autistic. What's really fun about my autistic kids is I get to see a huge spectrum of autism. One is kind of on one side and one is kind of on the other. And so we'll be sharing those examples in this video, and I really hope this blesses your life because honestly, I don't want you to have to make the same mistakes I have. So let's do this. First, let's define each one. So a tantrum is a voluntary, somewhat controlled outburst. And usually it's because they didn't get what they want, or they got something taken away, or they lost their screen time, or they want something in the store. Those are the types of reasons for a tantrum. And a meltdown is completely different. A meltdown is not in that person's control. A meltdown is big feelings. It's usually caused by like overwhelming stimuli or emotional drama that happens in their life, trauma that happens in their life, or just something that has really big feelings and it's hard to deal with. In this video, we'll be talking about 4 key differences between tantrums and meltdowns. I'll be sharing with you experiences from my home to yours, some tips on how to respond, and then also some tips on how to tell whether or not it's going to be a meltdown or it's just a tantrum. And when I say just a tantrum, I shouldn't say the word just because tantrums are tantrums. They're not fun to deal with. All right, let's go. I want to share a story about Ezra. When he went into a really a true autistic meltdown, he was 2 years old, and I don't know how it came to be because I was not aware. I did know that he was autistic. He was already diagnosed. We got him diagnosed at 21, 22 months, but I was still really new. Okay, so this is a mistake that I made. I hope that you don't have to make. I didn't see the signs leading up to the meltdown. I don't even remember because this was 7 years ago. He's 9 now. But he got to an autistic meltdown. I had never seen it before. It was brand new for me. And I thought, okay, so I don't know how to help you. I knew how not to help him. I knew he didn't really like being held. He didn't really like being touched. He didn't like lights and sounds and sensory input. But I knew that he liked deep pressure, right? So he didn't like being held like a light hug, but he liked deep pressure, like compressions. And so what I did was I picked him up. He's only 2 years old, right? I picked him up. I mean, he's freaking me out. He's freaking out. This is autistic meltdown. And it was hard to really describe, but I was really scared for him because I didn't know how to help him. I felt like a mother without hands. That's what I'd say all the time. And in my book that my husband and I wrote, the cover is a mom without hands, and she's kind of leaning over and trying to help her son, and there's a tree in the background, and he's creating the tree to help shade both of them and to help both of them, but she doesn't know. She's focused on him and she has no hands. And that's what I told the designer I didn't create it, but I described it. I was like, that's what I want you to portray in my books. That's how I felt. That's in this moment, especially when Ezra was having this autistic meltdown. I took him, I was like, I don't know how to help you. And I went to one of his favorite places in the house. I turned off all the lights, so everything was really dark. And his favorite place was the stairs, just down, in the stairs and next to the rail. And he liked that tight area, that tight place. And I sat down and I held him, but I gave him these deep compressions until he was kind of relaxing a little bit. And I was like, okay, good. This is maybe helping him, right? And then I started singing really, really softly a song that was just really simple. And he relaxed a lot. So, I basically whispered that song. I was so grateful when he finally kind of stopped being so tense, stopped crying. He was able to act like more of his normal self and was able to get up and walk around, and because he was screaming and crying and shaking and hyperventilating. And then I could tell at first when he started getting better was his breathing got steadier. One thing that I've noticed too, and this is going to kind of blow your mind. with tantrums and meltdowns with my two autistic boys, they can have a tantrum. They can be in a tantrum. And if we don't help them and support them, and maybe things get worse, that can turn into an autistic meltdown. Ezra would not want that type of support. He would not want me to hold him or take him anywhere. He'd probably want to go, so he likes his safety band. And he also likes like headphones that help him, noise canceling headphones. The problem with Ezra is that he doesn't keep them on for very long, but they do help. We don't just have him carry and always like wear the headphones, but we'll have him carry them so that he has that power to put them on if he wants to. So we really like headphones that are really small, that are easy to carry and just put in our pocket and take out and stuff if he needs it. So we like these one brands too, just because people always ask. There's this one brand you can see right here. We really like it because you can also hold little things, like we can hold medicine.
Trying to remember the medication and how to take it and when to take it. We had this company reach out to us with a pretty cool idea for their product here. So it's actually headphones, and then it actually has 5 different alarms that you can set to remember to take your medications. Another thing with tantrums and meltdowns is music that can help, right? And so we're actually going to bring Ezra up right now. He's just waking up. We'll try these headphones on. I like them because they have little ear things, which should help Ezra to actually keep them on, because normally he just throws them off. So we'll see how he does. All right, Ezra, do you want to try out some headphones? You want to try some headphones out?
So this is kind of like our emergency preparedness for making sure he doesn't get into a meltdown. Now, there have been people who have commented on our channel who are autistic themselves, and I love this anecdotal data. I love these stories because it like brings me as a parent into the life of my child. And one of my children is completely nonverbal, so this is huge for me. I have learned so much from the autistic individuals who have been brave enough to share on our channel, who I've interviewed, or who have just commented. So if you are an autistic individual and want to share really anything that you want to share about tantrums and meltdowns, please put it in the comments below. We're going to be talking about like tips on how to like tell if it's a meltdown as a like from the outside, and then also what support you can do during the meltdown or before or after. I think the most important advice is to try and what you can visualize, like what you can see, to try and see, how can I help you so that you don't get to that meltdown? That's like the most important advice. So we'll be talking about that. And then also tantrums. One thing I have to say about tantrums before we go into the nitty gritty and stuff is just because you know your child is having a tantrum does not mean that you can just be like, this isn't a meltdown, so suck it up, right? There's still patience that needs to be involved. Your child's autistic, so they're experiencing the world differently than you. We have to try as caregivers, as parents, as a mom, we have to try and put our feet in their shoes and walk a mile and say, what are they experiencing? What's the reason behind this behavior? If this behavior was just communication, what would my child be saying? Because I believe all behavior is communication. And especially for my son, Ezra, who is completely nonverbal, behavior is his communication right now. We're definitely trying to get him to communicate in other ways. He spells sometimes when he is highly motivated to, when it's his idea, which is super exciting to get some words out of that brain of his. We really want to know what he's thinking and feeling. And then he also uses his iPad, his AAC device. AAC device? Did I say that wrong? Anyway, his device that helps him talk, he'll point at pictures and then it'll talk for him, right? So you can see here, he's like asking for blueberries or asking for refried beans or asking, for food. And that's usually when he uses it. Or if he wants to go outside, he'll say that. He'll like, go outside, go outside, go outside. But with that, it's super important for me to notice his behavior and treat it as him trying to communicate. So keep that in mind, even with tantrums. It's communication. In this video, we'll be talking about 4 key differences between tantrums and meltdowns. The first is control. How much control does your child actually have in a tantrum? They have partial control. They do. Because let's say you're at the store and they want that cord. I know a cord is kind of a random thing to want, but for my child, it's not random. Ezra loves cords. He likes wrapping them around his hands. He likes manipulating them. And he likes throwing them and then catching them and going and getting them, stuff like that. So imagine he's in the store, he wants a cord. And I'm like, you have so many cords at home, you do not need another cord. He is going to throw a tantrum. Guaranteed. That tantrum is partially controllable. For example, if I got the cord and gave it to him, he'd stop. So he does have partial control. That's a very big difference between a meltdown. Someone who is actually having a full-on autistic meltdown does not have control. Okay, they don't want to be behaving the way they're behaving, however it looks. And it can look really different too. A meltdown can be like a shutdown and can look like someone's kind of staring off in space. A meltdown can look like someone is screaming and yelling and kicking and hurting themselves or property or other people, but it's not controllable. So that's the first one is control. Do they have control? Tantrum is partial and a meltdown is none. They have no control. Keep that in mind. It's super important to know. The second difference between a tantrum or meltdown is cause. What is causing it? So for a tantrum, it could be that they need attention. That's like the least likely. I'm going to tell you right there, it's the least likely. But for a neurotypical kid, like that's the number one go-to. Usually my child needs attention. But for my autistic kids, I'm like, it's probably not attention. It can be. It can be that they want and need attention. But a lot of times it's an object or the ability to do what they want that is being taken away from them, or they're scared that they can't, or they think that they're in trouble, things like that. So then they're having some unwanted behavior, whatever that looks like for them. You might label it as a tantrum. The cause of a meltdown, especially an autistic meltdown, can be, it's not limited to, but it can be caused by like deep emotional stress. A lot of times I've seen with teenagers, the social anxiety that builds up. It can be caused with masking for a long time and they're just like so incredibly exhausted because you've just been pretending and masking and camouflaging and like you can't get the rest that you need and the break that you need. And so then you might go into a meltdown. Or it's caused by like over sensory stimuli and just like overload, sensory overload. And that is not a choice, right? That's something that happens to you. And so you can put things in place to, especially as an individual, you can see kind of like a red flag, like, oh, I'm starting to get really, really tired. I need to take a break. Take care of yourself. Do that self-care so that you don't have to deal with that meltdown. The third difference between a tantrum and a meltdown is attention. So what do they do? It's like a response to attention. What do they do when they get attention? This is a huge difference. If you give them attention and they're attention seeking, which means it's a tantrum, not a meltdown, then they might be like, oh, I'm better now. I needed that attention. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not like your child's manipulating you necessarily. It could be that you're not giving them enough attention. Like, have you been giving them one-on-one attention? Maybe you've given them a ton. Like, I'm just going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you've given them a lot of attention. Good job. You're an amazing parent. Good job. You're a good mom. We don't need that mom guilt. But if you do give them attention, or they get attention from their teacher or something, and then they calm down, then that's a tantrum. It's not a meltdown. But a meltdown is, let's say you give them attention. You try everything. You go and give them a hug and they push you away. That you give them like a treat and they don't even notice. That's more signs of a meltdown, because someone who's having an autistic meltdown is not attention seeking. Okay? If you remember anything from this video, remember that. And the fourth thing, the key difference between a tantrum and a meltdown is the resolution. So how does it stop? With a tantrum, they either get the attention that they need, or they get the object that they want, or they get the screen time that they're fighting for, right? That's something that will really motivate my son, Simon, that one-on-one attention. And so he'll plan that in his head and it'll help him calm down because that's a distraction. Sometimes with Ezra, it has to be more of a visual thing, right? To distract him out of that tantrum. But the resolution is that they either get what they want, they get distracted, they're able to calm down because I've made a deal with them, we've negotiated, we've talked things out, things like that. The resolution can look in lots of different ways. The resolution with a meltdown mainly is that they have been able to naturally calm themselves down. Sometimes it takes a long time, and sometimes it's difficult to know how to help and support someone in a meltdown. So we have 3 tips on how to tell whether or not it's a tantrum or a meltdown. The first one is, how did it start? Did it start, what was the trigger? Was the trigger that they wanted something? And then that automatically brought them into a state of yelling, kicking, screaming, who knows, whatever that looks like for your child when they give you a tantrum. Another tip is think of the environment, look at the environment, and try to look at that environment in their eyes with their perspective. Can you be overstimulated in this environment? And you're going to know more about your child as you get to know your child better. So the more experience you have with that child, maybe if you're a teacher and it's the first day, don't be too hard on yourself. Just observe. Look at the environment and try and see what is overstimulating, what could possibly be hurting them or making them super uncomfortable. And then you can talk about getting them out of that environment, changing that environment. I mean, as a teacher, you can put, fabric over the lights. What if the lights are blinking like crazy and driving them crazy? Ooh, here's another little tip that we actually got from Temple Grandin one time when I interviewed her, which you can see that video here. It was freaking awesome. I learned so much from her. She's a gem. And she really is. She has some really good insights. And one thing that she said was, if you're worried that lights may be really bugging your child, take that light, take a video, and then watch the video on slow motion and see if it blinks in the video. Because your child might be experiencing that blinking. They might be noticing that blinking, and that might be driving them crazy. Try and really observe the environment and how it could be overstimulating for your child and turning that into a meltdown. And the third tip is is this under my child's control? Do they have control over this at all? If I give them what they want, can they just stop? If I give them what they usually want, what usually gets them to stop tantrum, is it not stopping? Is it more of a meltdown? That type of thing. Is it within their control? So that's the third one. And my advice, just from my home to yours, is please don't give in to unreasonable demands. Maybe step back from the situation and be like, is this reasonable? There will be times when I will give in, when I'll say, you know what? I would like to give you this treat, the one that you're having tantrum about, but I need to see a child that's being respectful first before they get, and you can use different words that your child is used to, that you feel comfortable using with your child. On the other hand, if your child's dealing with a meltdown, how do you help them? You can try and imagine the sensory input that's happening. So dim the lights. See if that helps. Maybe it won't, but it might. Try and help them go to a safe place, a safer environment. Ezra's safe environment is his safety bed because he's safe, hence the name safety bed. And the last one is please try and comfort your child, but don't be overwhelming. I mean, imagine if you're having a hard time, if you're having sensory meltdown, right? And then someone is hovering over you going, you're fine. What's the matter? What can I do to help you? What are you feeling right now? Do you need this? Can I give you this? And that might be overwhelming. That might not be helpful at all. So when your child is not having a meltdown, that is the time to possibly ask them questions like, last night, you had a really hard time. I'm so sorry that happened. How can I help you? If that happens again, what do you want me to do? That's a better time to ask. And your child may not have an answer, but they might know exactly what they want you to do. So it's always good to ask, especially when anxiety is low, because that's when we learn, is when anxiety is low. That's when you can have really good discussions and they can teach you things about how they feel and how they're experiencing the world. And please listen, because it's important. When my husband and I took our 5 kids and lived in an RV full time, visited all the national parks, we came close to some meltdowns because obviously we're in tight quarters. There's lots of us. So lots of things going on, lots of needs, lots of feelings in a very small, compact space, but also lots of new things. We were going to a new national park like every week, sometimes twice a week. It just depended on how close the national parks were and how long the drives were. And so all these new experiences, Ezra had an easier time, probably because of his ADHD. That kind of helped out a little bit. But Simon had a harder time because of his autism. We didn't even know he was autistic at the time. He was only 1 year old when we started that adventure. But we learned a lot. We learned a lot on that RV adventure about how we can help with meltdowns, how we can help prevent them, how we can spot them coming, and then how we can support our child, get them out of that environment, how we can communicate with them, even communicate with them when they're nonverbal. Both Ezra and Simon at that time didn't talk. Simon was only 1, so yeah, he didn't talk. But we learned a lot on that adventure, and we still post regularly of our unique normal, so please consider subscribing. And remember, if you have an autistic child, you're in good company.